Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the differences between the Gemini Sun, the Gemini Moon and the Gemini Rising. So definitely stay tuned. Now this series is an updated version of a series that I made about 4 years ago, back in 2017. But within the space of 4 years, my knowledge and my understanding of astrology has certainly changed. So I hope that I'm able to bring some new and interesting pieces of information to the table today. Now, I also recommend that you watch the entire video, even if you're just here for your sun, moon, or rising. Watch the whole thing because things may interlink. And another thing to mention is just keep in mind that things can change depending upon that sun, moon and rising combination that you have. Now, what I would like from you guys is to comment down below your thoughts and your opinions on the video, because I do appreciate your feedback. Now, before we do get started, however, certainly make sure that you give this video a like if you like it. Also, make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and to, of course, click that little bell icon so that you can keep yourself updated with further content from myself. And one more quick thing to mention, and that is that I have a merchandise store, so I have some nice pieces there. So feel free to check those out if you are interested. Right, so with all of that being said, let's do this. Okay, so firstly, just a brief overview of the sun, moon and rising. These three placements are often referred to as your big three within the astrological community, and many people like to mention them as a way to express their overall very basic personality. Naturally, however, astrology goes much deeper than this, as most of us perhaps know here. So yeah, it goes much deeper than these three components, but I still think that it's good to learn about these placements, especially if you are a beginner. But even if you are more advanced, I still recommend watching, because who knows, maybe you will learn something new. Okay, so let's begin with the sun in Gemini. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some key words associated with the sun in astrology, read those through, take them in. But what does it mean if these keywords are being combined with the sign or with the archetype of Gemini? Well, it creates an energy of purposeful investigation and communication, and of a humorous, light-footed, yet clever, articulate self-expression. Likewise, it creates an energy of versatile, changeable, and flexible creativity, along with an energy of individuality based on learning, education, facts, and youthfulness. And it also creates an energy of conscious wit and persuasion, as well as an energy of seeking attention for one's dexterity and for one's short, swift stories. So what does this specifically say about you if you were born under this sign, meaning that you have the sun in Gemini natally? It suggests that you are intrinsically aware of how purposeful information, education, learning, and language are. Likewise, you are aware of things like the art of conversation and the art of communication. And you might actually possess much pride when it comes to your own conversational and communicative skills and abilities. Now, this is not to say that all of you Gemini suns, that you're all very well educated, or that you received much education growing up, nor does this suggest that conversation and learning and communication comes easy to you all, or that it comes easy all of the time. But there does seem to be an emphasis in relation to these things. So for example, right, just to help you understand where I'm coming from. For example, maybe sometimes you struggle to get the words out that you really want to express. And if or when this happens, you may become quite frustrated, especially given that the words you express, they may mean a great deal to you. You really want to be understood by others through how you communicate. Or maybe there's other times when you get your facts or your figures wrong or just mixed up or just jumbled a little bit. And if or when this happens, you might laugh it off like, haha, it's no big deal. Whilst your ego is like, oh well, that was embarrassing. Or maybe there's times whenever you're telling a story, and as you're doing so, you have just so much up here that you want to share, that you want to express, but whenever it comes to the actual execution, to that delivery, you stumble over your words, or you lose your trail of thought mid-sentence, or you go off in just completely different directions. So in this respect, there can be times when you're scattered or when you're undirected in your communication, Gemini suns. However, there's still an element of youthfulness here when it comes to your communication, along with elements of curiosity and intrigue and amusement and versatility. So when you do share a story or when you express yourself, you try not to take yourself super seriously, and you may try to keep things pretty light and just breezy as well, which makes those listening to you feel more at ease. And the reason for why I say this is because you're okay with just skimming the surface most times, well, without getting too heavy and intense into other people's personal lives, for example. And so in this way, you might be really good at small talk or at icebreakers. Now, don't get me wrong, you might have other placements in the chart to counteract what I'm saying, but if we look at the Sun in Gemini as a singular placement, you might be that person who just moves through a conversation quite quickly without it becoming too deep. It's a very easy breezy, cool, detached sort of feel where you don't get too caught up in everything. So you might ask more generalized questions like, how are you? Or how's your week going? What did you do during your time off? Or you might share just really short and swift stories about your day or about your week. Or you might be doing something with your hands whilst you're having just a quick conversation with a friend or with a coworker or with a housemate. So you could be cooking or painting or texting whilst you are conversing with someone. Furthering on from this point though, you're possibly quite good at doing two things at once or at multitasking. Plus, you might also be very good at using your hands, and your dexterity skills might be pretty on point as well. Therefore, there's a suggestion here of you being good at the likes of juggling or playing an instrument or handwriting. Your handwriting might be very nice. Or script writing, solving puzzles, even building, computing, art. Honestly, the list could go on and on when it comes to you Gemini suns. But typically, you're the types of people who are prone to thinking on your feet. There's a mental quickness when it comes to your personality and your creativity. They're kind of going back to your light-footed style of conversation. This doesn't mean that you don't ever go deep into conversations or that you don't go into heavy subjects altogether. Well, you very much are capable of doing these things. But I think you go deeper when, for example, it's a subject or a topic that you're actually interested in, or when it's someone you know quite well, and so you like them. You like that individual you're speaking with. or whenever it's a discussion that requires you to bring out your facts so you can really play, play, so to speak, such as the likes of an interview or a debate or an educational program or a creative project. Yeah, there's no underestimating your conversational and communicative skills, Gemini suns, when you're in your area of expertise, let's just say, or whenever you're surrounded by people who you enjoy being around. In fact, there's so many of you Gemini suns who I notice that are writers, musicians, teachers, presenters, intellectuals. So sure, there's some of you who come from a pretty good, well-established educational background, right? Because that may be a possibility with most of you or some of you. But even for those of you who didn't necessarily receive early education or like a substantial form of education, you may still go on to learn about a particular subject that does actually resonate with you as individuals. Though whatever the case, it's your identity, it's your individuality, and it's your ego that are being linked with your learning style and with your communication style and your education. So for example, if someone tries to outsmart you or outwit you, especially when it comes to a subject that you know a great deal about, you might fire back with a witty, logical comment, or you might get into a discussion with the intention of outsmarting that other person. You may say something like, aha, or gotcha, or I told you so. Or as another example, if someone starts copying your words, or if they start saying, I came up with this idea, when in actuality you did, well then you might be pretty quick to speak up and say, no, you didn't. I did. Or you might actually just mess around with them a little bit. You can have the tendency of winding people up, playing mind games with other people just for fun sometimes. Or another example here, let's say that someone is telling lies about you behind your back, or if they're sharing false information about you online. Again, you might be quick to set the record straight. Basically, you will most likely speak up and say something anytime untruths are being shared or spread about you. Likewise, you might speak up when untruths are being shared just in general, when it comes to information, media, other people. See, it's you who is aware and conscious of the impacts that words and language and facts and information can have on yourself and on others. Maybe some of you had to learn this the hard way due to being teased or picked on growing up. Or maybe you learned this via a father figure growing up. So this could have been the likes of a father figure urging you to do impeccably well at school, or a father figure encouraging you to always tell the truth no matter what. Then again, maybe some of you experienced a father figure who lied quite a bit, and so you learned of the dangers that lying can bring. Or quite possibly you experienced a father figure who just made you aware of lying, of when to tell the truth and when to conceal information. However, this is not to say that you never lie or that you never have lied, Gemini suns. I mean, it could be that during your younger years, especially, you told many fibs, particularly fibs that got you out of trouble. And it could also be that growing up you were quite gossipy. You might take part in a good gossip today, but it's all in good fun. Still though, I think that as you age and as you grow, you become more conscious of truths and untruths and even half-truths along with, like I said, the impacts of such things towards you and towards those around you. So in this respect, perhaps you are very quick to call somebody else out on their BS, for example, or maybe facts are important to you, and so if someone doesn't deliver the facts correctly, again, you might be quick to say something, or you might wind them up or joke around about it. Then again, maybe there's times whenever you consciously know, okay, maybe in this situation, it's best that I keep quiet here and I don't say anything. And in this way, you might be quite good at knowing when to speak and when to keep your mouth shut. Though on the other hand, maybe this way of doing things confuses people sometimes. Maybe others say things to you like, what on earth is going on in your head right now? What are you thinking? What are you not telling me? In fact, you might give off this impression at times that you are deep in thought, but yet when you're questioned, your response is brief. It's short. See, for you, there's a purpose to how you communicate. So if you don't think there's a purpose to speak or share, you won't. Or if you think to yourself, you know what, this conversation isn't going anywhere, then you might be more quiet. Or if you think this subject matter it's not my forte, I'm not interested, like I don't really like it, you might hold back until you know a little bit more about it, until you educate yourself more about it. Provided that you want to, of course. Though following on from this point, you're typically a curious individual. And you can be quite an eager and enthusiastic learner. So if a certain subject does spark your interest, you will light up and you'll happily learn more about it. You're more willing to investigate and research more in this way. And you might actually get a lot of enjoyment and pleasure from such things. Though on the other hand, if you are not interested, that subject or that information will just go right over your head. It'll go in one ear, out the other. Though to be fair, your intellectual interests, they might change about so much that you find it difficult to hold your focus. You might find it hard to concentrate on one topic or issue at a time. So as you're watching this video, for example, maybe you have me playing in the background whilst you're doing something else. You know, maybe you're on your phone, or maybe you're doing tasks around the house, or maybe some of you just switched off, like after about 4 minutes in, let's say that. Still though, you're typically the types of people who get enjoyment from learning new things and from gathering random facts and information. You might never use some of these facts, but they're still good to know. And besides, who knows, whenever you need to pull them out of the hat, you know, at a party or something, at a social gathering. Though kind of going back to this father figure, maybe he was full of facts and interesting pieces of information. Maybe he was a source of all kinds of education. And so in this way, maybe he was always educating you and teaching you things growing up. He was this sort of walking, talking encyclopedia. Or maybe he was someone who would teach you a new word every day, along with its meaning and its origins. Then again, maybe this father figure would talk in riddles at times, or at least that's how you viewed this individual. Perhaps to him they were phrases that he could fully understand, but to you, maybe you couldn't quite understand them. And the older that you got, the more articulate and fluent you got as well. Maybe you sometimes quote your father often without realizing it, or maybe you do realize it. Or maybe your father shared quotes with you that stay with you right into your adulthood. Though on the other hand, maybe for those of you who didn't share this relationship with a father figure, maybe you were still encouraged by him to learn more. And kind of going back to the previous point on quotes, maybe you often quote writers or artists or poets or musicians or just influential people as a way to share a story, as a way to express yourself. Maybe you learned this from your father, or maybe you didn't, but there's something here about quoting as a form of self-expression. Likewise, there's something here about quoting as a form of creativity. Though, before we look at creativity a little bit more, when it comes to you being encouraged, or when it came to you being encouraged by a father influence to educate yourself, maybe this was how you received love and admiration and praise from him. For example, maybe getting good grades on your report card was applauded by him. Could have been the likes of you passing your exams and then receiving a really lovely gift of some sort. Or maybe he would tell you how proud he was of you due to your intellectual performance. Though on the other hand, maybe for others of you, you didn't receive praise from your father for these things. Maybe he expected more from you, or maybe whenever you didn't do so well, it was evident just how upset he was with the grades that you got. Perhaps it just all really depended on how well you actually did, Gemini suns. Furthermore, perhaps you have more of a communicative, intellectual relationship with this father figure over an emotional one. Maybe he wasn't or isn't big on hugs and kisses, or maybe he wasn't or isn't the most affectionate of people. Perhaps within your own relationships, you aren't actually the most affectionate people yourselves. Maybe romantically, you keep it more light, more playful. There's maybe more of an emphasis on having a decent conversation. So being able to talk things through logically, and maybe also an open line of dialogue is very, very important to you within your romantic relationships. It's necessary if the relationship is going to work. And if there isn't an open line of dialogue, things may become quite problematic. Essentially though, words matter to you Gemini suns. Communication matters, and if these things are restricted, then issues and implications may arise. The last thing I just want to talk about is your creativity. See, you are typically quite creative people. The reason for why I say this is because of your ideas mixed with your ability of using your hands and your mind together. Like I said, so many of you may become writers or musicians or teachers or intellectuals because not only are you clever and articulate in your self-expression, but you are also great at coming up with fun and playful and creative ideas to add to the mix. And you also might love just playing around with different characters, different profiles. Yeah, you can be pretty versatile and flexible in this respect. So getting into different roles may be very entertaining and enjoyable and fun for you. Likewise, things like reading and music and media might be right up your street, so you might dive into a range of a variety of different authors and musicians and entertainers or scientists, philosophers. Again, the list could go on. And so your curiosity, it lives on along with that childlike nature of yours. There's that like curiosity mixed in with that giddiness together. And there's this intellectual side of you, but there's also this sort of mischievous side of you as well. Though essentially, whatever it is that you do end up creating, Gemini suns, it's typically going to showcase your education along with your light-footed and youthfulness, along with those dexterity skills that I mentioned. And to be honest, you might receive much applause and appreciation for such things as well. And when you do receive this applause and this appreciation, your ego may feel very, very good. Now, some astrologers like to associate the ascendant with our life path and then the sun with the person that we are striving to become. And so in your case, Gemini suns, perhaps what you are striving to become is this versatile and this multifaceted individual, and perhaps a part of your purpose is that of language and education and communication. Now, before we do move on to the moon, make sure to locate the house placement of the sun, because this is going to show you the area of life that this energy is playing out in. And also remember aspects, because aspects can show you any difficulties that may arise along with other energies that may influence that sun energy. Okay, so moving along, now we're going to move on to the moon in Gemini. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some keywords associated with the moon in astrology. Make sure you read those and take them in. But what does it suggest if these keywords are being combined with the sign or with the archetype of Gemini? Well, it creates an energy of communication, logic, and wit based on emotional reactions and emotional needs, of unconscious curiosity and exploration, of persuasive and educational emotional needs, and of fickle and superficial emotional support. Likewise, it creates an energy of logically making sense of one's emotions and of emotional cycles based on learning and investigation. Plus, it also creates an energy of varied, changeable emotional security. But what does this suggest about you if you were born with the moon in Gemini, meaning that you have the moon in Gemini natally? Well, it suggests that within your family home growing up, there was plenty of movement, variety, and changeability, along with plenty of chit-chat, curiosity, and exploration. And maybe things were rearranged and shifted around quite a bit. So for example, perhaps you transferred or changed schools due to family reasons growing up, or maybe you moved from one city to a different city, or maybe there was a variation of family members, such as you growing up surrounded by loads of different cousins and aunties and uncles. And so due to these variations, maybe things changed around quite a bit. This could have been the likes of an auntie being unreliable, resulting in a change within your family home, or this could have been the likes of cousins being scattered everywhere, resulting in a lack of focus or a lack of consistency between family members. Perhaps due to such changes, family members often gossiped, or they still gossip about each other, or maybe it can be extremely difficult to get you all in the same room together. And even when you are in the same room, there's just so much going on. There's so much stimulation going on at once that everyone is just talking over each other and getting carried away in the conversation. Perhaps you yourself, Gemini moons, you picked up on these behaviors, and so you yourself, maybe you unconsciously habitually talk over others during a conversation. Or maybe you simply learned that in order to get what you need, you gotta speak up. Sure, maybe people within your family home may have been drowned out in conversation, but that didn't stop them from talking anyway. You know that saying, you either stretch or you starve? Well, in your case, Gemini moons, it's you either speak up or you don't get heard. Though on the other hand, perhaps some of you didn't necessarily grow up with loads of cousins and so on, like I was sort of previously mentioning. Maybe you didn't grow up with tons of voices talking over each other, but quite possibly you grew up with quite the chatty, communicative mother figure. Then again, you could have grown up with both. But still though, perhaps your mother would talk about anything that appealed to her and at any time, just randomly. And also at times, perhaps she just didn't have a filter. Maybe she still doesn't have a filter. Now, on one hand, she might be great at turning on the charm and the wit when conversing with others. But on the other hand, she might be far from charming and friendly. I think it depends on the situation. I mean, if she feels attacked, for example, or she has felt attacked in the past, she might be quick to using words of ammo as a way to protect herself. Maybe growing up, you had your fair share of cutting words from your mother towards you, Gemini moons. Especially whenever you were in trouble. Maybe sometimes you still do get some cutting words from your mother towards you, depending on the situation, even if you're an adult, for example. But just as much, you might experience a side of this mother figure that's funny and social and amusing. She might be great at striking up a good, decent conversation and just having a laugh. And maybe you also chat with her regularly. And this is pretty interesting because my boyfriend and my close friend, they both have Gemini moons, and they're pretty close to their mothers, I think, in that they're always updating each other on what's going on in their lives. So perhaps you are the same if you have a Gemini moon. Then again, maybe there have been times whenever you can go a long period or just some time without talking to this mother figure or to your family just in general, perhaps due to their tendency or her tendency of being flaky and inconsistent. Could be the likes of your mother not following through with commitments, or it could even be something more serious as well. So this could have been the likes of your mother being emotionally or mentally unstable during certain times of your life. Perhaps there's been times whenever she hasn't been well, or times whenever she's had to get her own life in order a little bit. But focusing on you, Gemini moons, on you, perhaps there's times whenever you can feel out of sync emotionally or mentally, or times whenever you get into a strange funk that you can't shake. Perhaps these things can come about whenever you're worried, or whenever you're stressed, or whenever you're just bored, when things are too mundane, when things are too routine for you. In fact, it could be suggested that doing the same thing over and over and over just bores you to death, and that you need change, you need variety. Yeah, you need the space to be free and to be curious. You might not need to roam far and wide like the Sagittarius moons, but you need to roam in your mind. You need to roam within your immediate environment. So you might prefer it if you have a few different things that you can sort of go between or choose from. You can just switch around. Or you might prefer it if you can switch between rooms and environments, or you might like taking short trips to a variation of places, different places, such as your local coffee shop or your local park or the next local neighborhood city over from you for a quick browse. Just anything to switch up the environment. And this right here, I think, is one of the major differences between the Sun in Gemini and the Moon in Gemini, because I think with the Moon in Gemini, you can become more easily bored and more restless due to how your emotions are coming into play. I think with the Gemini Suns, there's more of a purposeful, conscious awareness to the changes they make, but with Gemini Moons, it's unconscious. And so you may find that your need for change and variety may be more difficult to control or manage. And it's also a feeling, remember. Then again, to be fair, perhaps it depends on the situation. I mean, for example, if you as a Gemini Moon individual, you feel emotionally supported by a friend or by a lover, whoever it is, if you feel supported by someone for your need for variety and freedom, then maybe you feel much more emotionally secure, right? You feel more stable and secure and comforted within your relationships. And perhaps in this way, you feel happier, you feel more content, you feel more emotionally satisfied. But if you as a Gemini Moon individual, you don't feel emotionally supported by others for these things, then maybe you feel uncomfortable, you feel unsettled, nervous even, irritated, Seriously, if someone tries to control you, you will get very, very upset. You will feel it, and you'll want to just get out of there, dodge it, run away. Then again, this might be a different situation, such as a partner or a friend coming to you and they're just going on and on about something, and maybe you are trying to sort of help them logically through it, but they just keep going on. And if this happens, you may become mentally exhausted and emotionally drained. And then all you want to do is retreat and recharge your energy. And if someone asks you to talk and you're not ready to talk, you might be lost for words. See, for you, your emotions are often funneled through logic and reason, and then you communicate your feelings and your emotions. Now, on one hand, this suggests that you're pretty good at communicating what you feel, especially in a way that makes sense to others. But on the other hand, you might sometimes intellectualize any difficult feelings or emotions that may arise, resulting in your emotions being misinterpreted or misdirected. For example, maybe a lover or a friend, they upset you, and then you become overwhelmed emotionally. So overwhelmed, in fact, that you don't know how to make sense of what you're feeling or how you're feeling. Or maybe there's times whenever you get so super quiet because you need to process things mentally before you communicate outwardly. But this way of processing your emotions may not align well with others who handle things differently. Perhaps you going quiet can be mistaken for avoidance, but underneath the surface, you're trying to think about things. You're trying to make logical sense of things. Though to be fair, there can be times whenever you do actually avoid difficult emotions and feelings, as you prefer for things to be more light and more breezy. However, it's this avoidance that may build up. So be careful, Gemini moons, because when you do eventually address the issue or whatever it is, things may sound scattered. Things may just be all over the place. So for example, just to understand this, you might bring up an old issue into a current issue, which can throw the other person off, or you may say something spiteful that's connected with the past because you know it'll cut deep. Likewise, when it comes to others sharing how they feel with you, you might try to make logical sense of what they're saying rather than thinking about what they're actually feeling. Now, don't get me wrong, again, this can be useful because you can help others think more logically about things, resulting in them changing unhealthy emotional cycles or patterns. For example, I know for myself, the amount of times my partner, my boyfriend, has helped me understand my own emotions through logic. It's been great. But on the other hand, you might overlook how the other person is feeling in that moment. Still, however, if your logic does make sense to the other person experiencing a difficult emotion, then perhaps they can overcome that emotional wave, so to speak. They can gain a clearer perspective. Seriously, you guys can be very clever when it comes to human emotion. Though whether or not others are willing to listen, I suppose, is another story. After all, emotions can't always be logically understood or interpreted all of the time, right? There's times whenever our emotions, they don't make any sense, and that's all a part of being human, in my opinion. Furthermore though, when it comes to how you show emotional support and comfort, again, you're logical minded and you might be excellent at listening to those who are in need of some emotional comfort. Yeah, you're willing to hear what a friend or a lover or a parent has to say. And you're also willing to speak right back, provided that you feel that there's a level of comfort and security there though. In fact, talking things over is typically what you need within your relationships. Like I said at the beginning of this section, you either speak up or you don't get heard. And so in this respect, maybe you can't stand guessing games or mind games from others when it comes to their emotional needs. You prefer it if people would just communicate how or what they're feeling along with what they need emotionally. Likewise, when it comes to you communicating your needs or communicating how you feel, you need to feel like you have the freedom to do so. And if you ever feel like you're being restricted or denied or rejected even for these things, then you might get really upset and you might also shut down, or you might possibly react in a pretty childlike way. After all, it doesn't make logical sense to communicate how you actually feel only to not be listened to. So this whole idea of someone saying, oh, no, we shouldn't talk about that, that might frustrate you. Or if someone tries to control your speech and what you say, you might be out of there in a heartbeat. Unless they have a valid reason. You might think that other person is just being stupid, they're being dumb. And maybe being forced to talk about something that you're not ready to talk about is also really frustrating for you. It doesn't make you feel comfortable, it doesn't make you feel secure. Basically, Gemini moons, you need freedom to talk about your emotions and your feelings. You need to feel like you have the choice. You have a choice in the matter. Now, what I'll also say about your emotional needs is that you need curiosity within your romantic relationships. And just within your relationships overall. You know, it could even be a platonic relationship. There needs to also be exploration, there needs to be movement. Perhaps it's these things that you picked up from your childhood. So you might like to spice things up with your romantic partners, such as going on short holidays together or visiting different spots or trying out a variation of sex positions, for example. And you might also like it whenever your partner comes up with new, fresh ideas and suggestions. In this respect, a super quiet, reserved, routine partner might bore you, but if they can bring the fun and the spontaneity, then great. Also, you might need humor and childlikeness within your emotional relationships. So this could be the likes of teasing or flirting or just joking around with another person. Or this could be the likes of you playing games together or watching not so serious television together. Though essentially, when it comes to you feeling comfortable within those relationships, you let out this goofy and dorky and funny side of your personality, this witty, hyperactive side of you. And the more movement and the more exploration, the more emotionally satisfied and fulfilled you're gonna feel. And if you're ever told that you're dumb or childish for your youthful childlike nature, you are quick to defend or protect yourself. You may not stand for these things. In fact, it might really hurt you if someone insults your intellectual interests or your creative interests. And this is another difference between the sun and the moon, because the moon in Gemini is going to be more sensitive when it comes to the topics and subjects that they're interested in. Sure, the sun in Gemini's ego might get hurt, but I think they're more likely to brush it off or bounce back with glee, especially if they're more confident in their smarts and their intellect. And they might also be more willing to get into a debate or into a discussion as a way to set the record straight, as I said earlier. But when it comes to the moon in Gemini, you individuals might take things more personally. Your feelings are more likely to get hurt, and when this happens, you might react. You might react with cutting words, for example, or you might react with some gossip or going behind other people's backs, or you might say something mean or cruel or insulting towards another person, or you might put the other person in their place by turning things around on them. You may say something like, well, you have the cheek to talk. Essentially, things are more emotionally charged. They're more emotionally charged. So the last thing I want to mention is that is to do with your unconscious tendency of persuading others. Your unconscious tendency of marketing things to others. You just can't help but do it. It's just second nature. So for example, let's say that a friend says, oh, I am really, really interested in this specific product. And you happen to know some information about said product. You might be quick to tell your friend about all the things that you know about it. You sort of start to sell the product to them, again, unconsciously. Though on the other hand, maybe you don't know much about this particular product, but you know of a similar one. You might then share all the information of that product that you know about to your friend. And then your friend might actually end up changing their mind and then buy the product that you just sold to them. Sure, it's not intentional, but you can be great at persuading others, and you do this with your facts and your figures and your education. Apply this strategy, basically, apply this example to a parent seeking advice, for example. Basically, you have a way with words. But yet, when it comes to yourself, you can be quite indecisive, Gemini moons. Especially if it's something that you don't overly care about, or whenever you just want to take things more easy. So this could be the likes of you choosing what to eat, or choosing a path to walk along, or choosing a movie to watch with another person. You may sort of leave it up to them to make the decision, because, well, I mean, sometimes your mind just switches off. It wants to switch off for a nice rest, and then you're like, you know what? I'm good, I'm easy, I'm cool, whatever. I don't want to think too much right now. And whenever this does happen, I think what's going on is you're recharging yourself. You're recharging your energy levels, especially your mind, which can be good for you. I mean, at the end of the day, Gemini moons, you're typically always in your mind, just constantly thinking. And so for you, maybe you do need a break, a little break from your mind every once in a while. Now, before we do move on to the ascendant or the rising sign, certainly make sure that you are locating the house placement of the moon, because this house placement is going to show you the area of life that this energy is playing out in. And also remember aspects, because aspects can show you any difficulties that may arise, along with any other energies that may influence that moon energy. Okay, so moving along, let's now look at the Gemini rising / the Gemini ascendant. So what I'm going to show you are some keywords associated with the rising sign or with the ascendant. Read these keywords, take them in. But what does it mean if these keywords are being combined with the sign or with the archetype of Gemini? Well, it creates an energy of a youthful, changeable, and multifaceted physical appearance, and of quick, curious, and nervous body movements and mannerisms. Likewise, it creates an energy of a networking and fact-finding self-identity, and of a clever and witty demeanor, and also of an intellectual yet humorous journey of self-discovery, and of fickle, scattered energy levels. And it also creates an energy of a versatile and stimulating life path. But what does it specifically say about you if you were born under this rising sign / ascendant, meaning that you have a Gemini rising or a Gemini ascendant natally? Well, it suggests that you see the world through a lens of exploration, curiosity, and movement, as well as through a lens of creativity, humor, and childlike play. So you might possess this outlook towards life where it's like, how can I learn more? How can I find out new interesting pieces of information to add to my education? Or how can I add new words to my vocabulary? Likewise, at the same time, there's this other part of you that wants to play and have fun, where you can joke around and be funny and entertaining, where you don't take it all super seriously, and also where you can be versatile, where you can be flexible, where you can switch things up when you want to. And so in this respect, you might also seek out experiences that are silly and experiences that aren't super heavy and burdensome. So you might gravitate towards art or media, or towards writing or reading or TV shows that are super mentally stimulating. Or you might gravitate towards relationships where you can goof around or be more childlike. Or you might be willing to strike up a conversation with someone who you find interesting, with someone that you're curious about, but also with someone who you can be playful with. Sure, you might prefer to engage in mentally stimulating conversations that actually do hold your interest, but there's a light-footed laughter that you bring to the table as well. In fact, it could be suggested that you bring your intellect and your humor into any new situation or experience. So for example, you might greet others with a smile or with a sparkling, curious look in your eye that says, "Tell me about yourself." Or you might walk into new situations just scanning the room as you look for interesting people as well as interesting things. You might be quite the magpie in this respect. And what I mean by this is that when something or someone sparks your interest or catches your eye, you might move swiftly into action. So you might quickly walk over to a new book or to a new item of clothing you just saw, for example, or you might approach a friend or a neighbor just to say, "Hey, hi." Though on the other hand, there can also be a nervousness when it comes to Gemini risings. So you might fidget, or you might scratch your neck, or you might run your hands through your hair, all as you move throughout the world. Yeah, you might possess a nervous quality to you, or a nervous tic, and you might find it hard to stay still for long. Still though, your nerves don't typically stop you from being curious about your surroundings. Then again, perhaps there are times whenever you feel so nervous, super nervous, so nervous that you need to rest or take some time to yourself. However, I think this over nervousness comes about especially when you're just overloaded with so much stimulation, so much of it. And so in this respect, some retreating from the world may help you relax and wind down as you calm down those nerves, as you calm down your mind a little bit. But like I said, there's a curiosity when it comes to you, Gemini risings. So let's say you discover a new book in the bookstore or online. So many questions may be running through your head, like, what's it about? How long is it? When will I read it? How long will it take me to read the book? Who's the main characters? Is it similar to other books that I own within the same genre? Or when it comes to that new item of clothing that I was mentioning earlier, same thing. So you might question, how much is this? What's it made of? Who's it by? I wonder if it'll go on sale soon. Essentially, you get curious about things and about people too. And the more interesting someone is to you, the more curious you are. Then again, you may also become easily bored, quite restless. So the moment a person or a subject or an item or an activity, just whatever it is, the moment that something isn't interesting to you, you might seek out ways to switch things up, to change it. You actually might prefer it that you have variety and options to choose from. And this outlook honestly may apply to any aspect of your life, whether this be how you do your hair, or the clothes that you wear, or the restaurants you eat at, or the places you visit on holiday. Yeah, variety is the spice of life in your eyes, Gemini risings. Though I suppose this leads me on to your physical appearance, because you might change your appearance quite a bit. Now, this may not typically be very drastic or super bold. These changes, they may be a bit more smaller, a bit more lighter. They may not typically be changes that are, saying, I need to make a statement here. Yeah, they just may be a little bit more fun and playful and light, like I said. And they may be the type of changes that make people go, there's something different about you, as they stir at you with an intrigue. Then again, these swift changes may be connected with your speech, or with your voice, or with your facial expressions, with your mannerisms, with how you actually communicate, which how you communicate can often change based on the information that you learn. Though, whatever the case, it's you Gemini risings who may prefer to spice things up, both physically and also mentally, and you might get bored or restless with your current look. Likewise, there's a youthfulness when it comes to your physical appearance, so you might appear younger than what you actually are, or you might act younger, or you might come across as younger through your gestures or through your overall demeanor. Plus, you can come across as mischievous or as if you're up to something. People might think that you're quite cheeky, but in a good way. And you might also be quite the charmer at times as well. Yeah, you might be good at putting on the charm in order to get what you want. And so in this respect, you can be pretty persuasive, quite good at using your words to get what you want. Then again, some of you might actually be quite manipulative as you use your words as a way to trick people into doing things for you sometimes. Now, the same thing could be said about the Sun in Gemini and the Moon in Gemini, but I think in the Gemini rising's case, it's easier to spot due to how out in the open you can be when it comes to your wit and your charm and your intellect. So for example, you might be great at one sentence openers, or you might be great at holding a general just chit-chat conversation with just about anybody, and you might also know exactly how to hit others right in their funny bone. And so in this way, you're typically the types of people who are easy to get along with, especially given that you can come across as quite social and friendly. Though this is not to say that you don't have times whenever you just want to keep to yourself. You very much can. I think it just depends on the situation. I mean, if you've been invited to a party or a social gathering, you'll go and you will turn on that charm. Or if you've been invited to a work conference or something related with work, again, you will know just how to communicate, how to socialize very well. Yeah, you can turn on that social button, so to speak. But let's say that you're out and about and just all you want to do is pick up a coffee and just go home. You don't necessarily want to interact or entertain others with your wit or your charm. You want to grab your coffee and get home, So you'll say your quick hellos and then you'll go straight home after. And I also think that there's times whenever you just may switch off your phone or where you take social media breaks. Yeah, you can be quite the ambivert in this respect, Gemini risings. The best of both worlds. Then again, maybe you feel as if you often need to recharge. You need to kind of step away from all of that information because at times you can be quite sensitive towards it all. You can feel quite overwhelmed by it. Now, on the other hand, I think that what you may lack sometimes, you may lack inspiration. And you may sometimes lack an uplifting spirit. And I think there's times whenever you can struggle to recognize your full potential, and you may struggle to recognize where you can actually go in life, where life can take you. And the reason for why I say this is because you much too often question yourself. You question the path you're on, you question the people in your life, the job you have, the home you live in, the family you're a part of. Essentially, you might question everything that's in your life because underneath the surface, you're seeking more out of life. So for example, maybe there's times whenever you find it difficult to make a decision because you're afraid of missing out on a different option available to you. Or maybe there's times whenever you feel mentally overwhelmed, leading to restlessness and leading to inaction, and also leading to a lack of direction. And perhaps these things, they are partly linked to your lacking of faith for the future, or partly due to you not trusting that things will work out. Or maybe these things are linked to fears of failure or to fears of never reaching a specific amount of success. Perhaps in this respect, a father figure in your life played a role in all of this. Maybe he still does today. Maybe underneath the surface, there's a part of you that's seeking this father figure's recognition and approval and respect. Or maybe there's a part of you that fears that you will never live up to his expectations. And so you question your life, you question the path you're on, you question how you should act or behave in situations, you question what options and opportunities fit in well with your life rather. Then again, I think these things, they are all a part of your self-discovery journey. So this idea of being confident and self-assured in your decisions, or being decisive and aware of your potential. Likewise, this idea of being aware of the things you strive to accomplish and achieve in this life. And I think it all starts with your mindset, along with believing in yourself. And I also think it starts with developing some emotional maturity, emotional intelligence. Maybe growing up, you didn't necessarily believe in yourself. Maybe you weren't taught how to, but through self-discovery and through self-development, I think you grow to learn what believing in yourself means. You become aware of what your individual hopes and wishes for the future are, along with how you align yourself with getting there. However, this is not a linear process. Things often change and shift around throughout your journey, but these things are all a part of your growth. So for example, maybe you decide one minute that you want to try out media, so you go and you do it. Then you decide you want to try your hand at art, you go and you do that. Then maybe you decide to try your hand at music or computing or photography. You might try your hand at many things throughout the span of your life, Gemini risings, but within each and every subject or area, you learn so much about the world and about yourself. And by doing so, you might also discover where your inspirations lie, what it is that inspires you as an individual. And you can teach others about what you have learned as well. Though on the other hand, perhaps things aren't as straightforward as I'm making them sound. After all, jumping from one area to another isn't the most practical. So many things must be factored in, such as expenses, relationships, security, family, children if you have any, along with pets or any other commitments. Okay, sure, maybe sometimes you have the flexibility to move jobs or to relocate, but perhaps a practical lesson you're here to learn is that restrictions may be useful. They help anchor you, they help you feel more at ease, they help provide you with foundation, with emotional security and with physical security, and maybe some healthy restrictions can help you focus your energy better as well. Still though, your life path is typically filled with variety and stimulation, and so you might actively seek out experiences that involve these qualities. Perhaps whilst you set up a foundation or some physical security, you also like to have the freedom of movement as well, the ability to roam and be free-spirited every once in a while. In fact, maybe this is what you seek from within your one-on-one relationships. Someone who can ground you, but also someone who brings out your wild side. Someone who you can learn a lot from intellectually, but also someone who you can laugh with and goof around with. Now, some astrologers do refer to the Ascendant as our life path. They associate the Ascendant with the life path. And then the Sun is associated with the person that we are striving to become. Now, we've already touched on the life path quite a bit, but also make sure to locate your sun sign for more information there. Also keep in mind the other 11 houses throughout the chart too. Though, kind of going back to how things might change and shift around for you throughout your life path, Gemini risings, maybe your chart ruler can provide you with insight into the types of subjects or topics or areas that you gravitate towards. And your chart ruler is Mercury. So the position of Mercury, it can show you subjects that you're interested in learning about. And also Mercury can also show you some things that spark your curiosity throughout your life. And likewise, Mercury can show you your communication style along with how you learn and how you process information. Essentially, the placement of Mercury can play a pretty vital role in your life. Though the last thing that I want to talk about are your energy levels. And your energy levels, Gemini risings, they may be quite scattered and all over the place sometimes. There can be times whenever your energy levels are misdirected with a lack of direction and purpose. Times whenever you don't want to commit yourself to a certain task or situation. Then again, maybe there's times whenever you simply just don't have time, or times when there's so much just going on up here, but all you want to do is just relax. You just want to switch off. It's all too much. Though, on the other hand, perhaps you're actually quite good at multitasking. You're quite good at juggling a few different things at once. So you might experience days when everything just flows freely without delay, where everything seems to fall into place naturally without much effort. Perhaps it all really depends on how many commitments you take on, as well as your moods too. Or maybe it also depends on your mindset and your mental outlook towards things. Though ultimately, I think you prefer the freedom to take on the day based on your energy levels. And if you don't, you might become pretty restless and or irritated. Now, it's also important to locate the position of Mars within the chart, because Mars rules over our energy levels. So Mars may tell a different story to what I'm saying, but maybe it can add to the story. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my really long video all about the differences between the Gemini Sun, the Gemini Moon, and the Gemini Rising. Now, if you happen to have any thoughts and opinions on today's video, then certainly let us know what you thought of the video in the comment section down below. Your feedback is very much appreciated here. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button, and also make sure that you give this video a like, remember. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!